Honestly, starting my business. I had never run a business. I had just started the nonprofit in November of 2019. And then I got laid off in August of 2020. And I knew I had been doing the work, but I had never paid myself. I had always had that security of a salary, of somebody paying me to do the work I was doing.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Emily Purry. How are you doing today, Emily?
I'm great. How are you?
I can't complain. It's been an interesting day, I would say the least. We're recording, what is it, November 6th today, 2024. And so just been an interesting last 72 hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, one of the ways I love kicking off the show is talking about the importance of networking. How are we actually connected?
I think we were connected through Olivia Atkins, who is also another podcaster who I was connected to through my business networking group, BNI. So I think that's how it was quite the roundabout way of having it happen.
Absolutely. It's one of those things. I just love connecting with people because I believe that everyone has a story to share, and it's just exciting to hear other people's stories.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where are you at right now in the United States?
I'm in the Portland metro area in Portland, Oregon.
Okay. I'm in Wisconsin right now. It's not quite winter yet, but we're getting close.
Ooh, no thank you. No thank you.
You know, I always love kicking off the show just asking you your comic book issue number one, that origin story. Who are you?
Whoa. That's a very loaded question. So I am an Oregonian, born and raised. I most of my family's here in the Pacific Northwest, except my sister recently moved to India, so she is no longer in Oregon, let alone the U.S. My family's all pretty close. We have three kids in my family. I am now single, but have three children, ages 24, 20, and 11. Let's see, origin story. Uh, Biggest parts of me is I'm an athlete. I, was soccer track in high school and college. Have done everything in between, and my most recent sport is surfing. I also identify, I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as being a person with a disability. So I have had Stargardt's macular degeneration my entire life, which is a progressive eye disease. So that's a big part of who I am, how I live in this world, and it's really made me who I am today, for sure.
Going off, we'll talk about sports first. It's were you always an athlete as a kid, or did you grow up a huge sports fan, or was it just something you did?
Always active. I've always been very active. I can't say a sports fan in the sense that I watch all the games, follow all the teams, all of that. I never sat still enough as a child or even a young adult to watch anything. I was either playing it or wanting to play it or trying it out. So always been super active and into sports, and just was one of those people that I could pretty much pick up any sport. I wasn't excellent, phenomenal at any sport. I was soccer and track in college, so I was at least decent at those two. But yeah, sports has always been part of who I am, for sure.
You talk about continually being an athlete. What got you into surfing?
um, Honestly, I was raised on the coast, the Oregon coast. My grandparents had a beach house all my life, and so we were there a lot, like a lot, a lot. So the ocean has always been part of my life. And then when we were kids, we body surfed a lot. And my grandfather actually surfed, like out in the waves, surfed, and so did my mom and her brothers. And so it was always something we knew about, but it actually wasn't until my 40th birthday, my sister took me to Costa Rica to an all women surf retreat. And so all week we got out there and surfed. And I was in a really, really challenging part of my life. Not just turning 40, that wasn't the big deal. It was my marriage was starting to be on the rocks more than it should have been. Going through the whole kid thing. Our kids were growing up and, moving on, all the things. So it was the first time I'd really found myself and the badass athlete I was in my, earlier years. And it's an addiction. It really is. Also with surfing, because of my sight, a lot of people say, go back to what you used to do, what you used to love. Well, soccer was what I used to love. I mean, I still love it as a sport, but because of my sight, I can't play it like I used to. So, finding a sport that I can do at the level that gives me that adrenaline rush and provides that challenge that I want as an athlete, and then surfing just hit it all in one package for sure.
I mean, it's such a sport. I feel like it's such an individual sport in the sense you're perpetually challenging yourself to stay on the board. I assume. I
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
even imagine even boogie boarding.
Yeah, the ocean is a powerful, amazing beast. And it really humbles you being out there. You're just this little tiny speck of nothing that the ocean can swallow at any time. And, as long as I have a coach out there that can really look out for me, as I can't see other surfers when I'm surfing, um, I feel as safe as anybody else could feel, even though the ocean could swallow us at any time. So.
So, can you explain a little bit more about your disability? Is it something you had since you were little, or is it something that developed over time?
A little bit of both. So I have Stargardt's macular degeneration. So that's a progressive eye disease that really affects my central vision. I still have my peripheral vision, but my central vision is slowly deteriorating. So when I was a kiddo, it didn't quite affect me as much as it does now. I had a lot more sight back then. Like I could still play soccer until my senior year in college. Like I had enough sight through that point. Um, and then as time progresses, it's just gotten less and less. I have less and less sight. So a little of both. It's something I've had all my life, and it's something I also have to accept. Not every day as far as progression, but definitely every year. Until the last 2 years, it's plateaued so far, but they really don't know what the future holds for my sight. So
How did that experience kind of motivate you in the professional sense?
yeah, it's interesting because as a kid, makes me sound like a total jerk. But as a kid, I always said that I wasn't going to be that blind person who goes and helps blind people or disabled people. And I don't know where I got that from. I don't know if it was the privilege I had as far as being disabled, but not super disabled, if you will. This is my younger child self talking right now. And so I was like, no, I don't want to be that person who's out there helping people with disabilities and advocating for them. It wasn't until I experienced an additional injury. So then not only did I my sight, but also my ability to walk and move was limited for about 5 years. That I really realized the need for more advocacy, more programming, more funding, etc., for people with disabilities. And so when I realized that, which was, back in 2009, I went back for my master's degree in business management and I started a nonprofit pretty quickly, advocating and bringing awareness to the need for programming, especially health and wellness for people with disabilities. And so that kind of drove that. And then I started my own business, educating companies and organizations, doing keynote speaking as well as corporate consulting for everything disability. And really, my keynotes focus on belonging because that's the hardest part about my disability is not my disability, it's how people treat me and my experiences in the world. And so if I can have an impact for other folks by educating people about disability, helping break through some of the stigma around disability, then I feel like I've, I've made my mark on the planet. So
What prompted you to really go in and actually starting a nonprofit and then creating your own business? Because a lot of people would maybe do something like volunteer or find some way to give back without going all in, if that makes sense.
yeah, the reason for the nonprofit was there were organizations for mental health, there was organizations for physical health, and some for recreation, but a lot of those things are seen as extras, even for anyone, let alone people with disabilities. A gym membership is seen as an extra when really it should be something that every person has access to, no matter who you are. But people with disabilities, with potentially restricted incomes, etc., the and then the lack of access to recreation facilities as well as sports activities, etc., we we just don't have the access, and it's seen as this extra. And when I was injured, I was dealing with so many aspects of my health and wellness, and no one understood my situation. I was in physical chronic pain. They had me on, this was right during the opioid crisis. They had me on so many opioids, and they didn't have a plan for me to get off. My mental health was just destroyed. I didn't have an outlet like I used to as an athlete. Anytime I was stressed, I'd go work out, I'd go lift weights, I'd go for a run, I'd do something. And when that was taken away from me, and then the combination of my sight, people are like, oh, just go do this, and I'm like, yeah, I can't drive, so I can't get there because of my sight. I can't walk because of my leg, so I can't, like, how do I do anything by myself? So there were so many pieces that I couldn't find in one organization, so I just decided to start that organization. And then the wonderful pandemic, during that, I was laid off from a nonprofit. And so I said, well, I built their corporate training program, so I'll build it for myself and keep going. So that's kind of the both organizations. Yeah.
What's your consulting organization called?
Purry Consultants. So just like my last name, Purry Consultants.
I love that. As we're talking through your story, I think in everyone's life there's a chance you can go east, a chance you can go west. You make a decision not really knowing the outcome. Can you give me a time where you just went for it?
Honestly, starting my business. I had never run a business. I had just started the nonprofit in November of 2019. And then I got laid off in August of 2020. And um, I knew I had been doing the work, but I had never paid myself. I had always had that security of a salary, of somebody paying me to do the work I was doing. And so, thank goodness at the time I was married, so I had my husband's income to be reliant on as I built um, the company and organization. But it's scary and it's hard, and it provides a lot of flexibility, and it's scary and it's hard, and you never know if the paycheck's coming or not, and you're hoping and praying people are hiring you to make sure you have your bills paid, etc. So I think that was number one. And then I think leaving my marriage was another one that I just had to say, all right, I need to do this for me. And that's really, really hard. Really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned being scary and hard, and touching on businesses. I also tell people it's a little lonely too. When you're going all in
Very.
on something, well, don't get me wrong, it's great to have people who support you, care about you, want you to see you succeed, but at the same time, it's kind of you versus the world, and just the sense of I need to find clients, I need to make this actually happen, for myself, and not look back.
Yeah. No, the support piece is huge, and it's hard. The loneliness piece is one of the things I did not expect, but it's hard to have that team around you where you can vent about, I don't know how to do my own budgeting. I don't know how to run QuickBooks. I don't know how, but you can't vent that to so many people when you're trying to build trust in people to hire you. So it's like that whole fake it till you make it thing in a sense, but then finding that community as well is super important to be able to say, I don't know how to do this, and can people help me and not judge me while I learn?
And
I
I
think
think
is a
when
big
you get
piece.
to I think when you get to that point of can you help me and not judge me, I think some way somehow the universe kind of opens up those people who happen to be a QuickBook expert or happen to do
Yeah,
social media or this that and the other and just actually kind of helps you build your team.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's about what 2024. Fast forward about 4 years, what has gone on from when you first went for it?
Well, I think you talk about the entrepreneur like spirit and the fears and all that. Um, Regardless of what I feel like is happening day to day, I have been profitable all 4 years, which is a win in my book. I've built regular clientele. I've built a team, a small team, but a team. I have my accounting covered. I have my CPA. I have an admin assistant helping, with things. So I've built a small team. So I'm not the only one, which is great. A lot of things have flushed out and been like, okay, I'm trying to do too much. And then a lot of times I'm like, I'm not doing enough. So I think just the biggest thing is what you see when you decide to go into a business may not be what comes out even a year later. I mean, and you can shift and change and add and subtract things every single year that are or are not working for you. So yeah, but the core of it has always been corporate training. The core has always been educating corporations and organizations on disability awareness in a non-threatening, scary, awkward way. That's been the core of my business from the beginning. Keynote speaking is ramping up. That's where I really put my efforts in 2024. And then the consulting always is kind of an add-on. If people see me speak and then they're like, hey, can you help me with this project? Or I do corporate training and then I say, I highly recommend doing this in the future. Why don't we work on that together? So yeah. So those are kind of the three core services, but corporate training is definitely the one I'm most known for.
I love that. What drew you to keynote speaking?
The adrenaline. um, I love it. I hate it all at the same time. I hate preparing for it. I really wish the content would just come to my brain and stick and stay and I'd memorize it. Um, but I love being up on the stage. The adrenaline of that is, I think it speaks to the athlete in me of like, I am so terrified right now and I'm going to get up here and kill this and I can't wait. So I love that piece of it. Um, what else drew me to that? I think just the people around me always said that I deliver a message that's able to be heard. And when I hear that, and I know that if people are hearing me talk about disability in a way that doesn't freak everybody out, and that can make an impact to so many people's lives. And so, if I can get more people with disabilities hired, if I can make organizations more inclusive just by talking and normalizing disability, then I've done my job. So, I think just that keeps me going for sure.
Emily, I appreciate that. And I always tell people keynote speaking or doing live TV, a lot of times it feels like almost like entrepreneurship. It's that roller coaster. You're up at the top and you feel that drop going down and you can
Oh,
feel in
yeah.
the pit of your stomach. And the first time it is really, really scary. Second time it's also really, really scary, but at least you feel that you're kind of almost more excited, like it is a roller coaster, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember the first time I got up and probably like in front of anyone, and I think it was about 300 to 400 people. So that was pretty big, anyways. And I swear I was going to have a heart attack. Like my chest was thumping so hard. I thought I was going to die right there. And then all of a sudden you get up there and everything goes quiet. And you're like, okay, here we go.
This is it.
Yeah.
I always have to laugh because about 3 careers ago, I was in education. And so I always tell people if you can get up in front of seventh graders, and watch them watch you talk about nothing they're cared about because they have a whole nother life going on in
Oh
the
yeah,
locker at the lockers and at lunch and all that. But once you get that, you're like, oh, these kids aren't even listening to me. They're more worried about what she thinks next to him or what he thinks, 3 rows back. And
yeah,
once you get
yeah,
that, and you
definitely.
realize that that made it so much less scary than to do live TV, to do ESPN, do all that. And it's like, it's one of those things that just, the more you do it also.
Yeah, definitely. Well, or it's the opposite. Like I was at the first time that same speech. I was listening to all the speakers before me, and the crowd was talking and like chit chatting over the speakers and not really paying attention. So I was like, okay, nobody's paying attention. I'm good. And then I got up there and it went dead silent. And I was like, oh no, people are listening. So yeah, that was very scary as well. But yeah.
Title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What is planned for your 2025 going into it?
Wow. I literally am sitting in the world of the unknown because of the recent election. Um, Not that we're getting into politics, but politics is definitely going to affect my industry of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Funding is going to be cut. Uh, it's a blessing and a curse that disability awareness specifically often doesn't sit inside diversity, equity, inclusion like that funding bucket. People don't often recognize that. At the beginning of me starting my business, I was fighting to get into that bucket because it was 2020 and there was a lot of funding available in 2020 for diversity, equity, inclusion. And now I have kind of shifted and not necessarily wanting to be in that bucket because funding is being cut. Um, the political environment is definitely going to affect the ability for companies and organizations to hire people like me to educate those around how to interact with people with disabilities, how to make an inclusive workplace, why to hire them. Affirmative action already got rolled back, which there's a lot of good and bad things about that. But it's definitely the world of the unknown for 25 and beyond for however long this phase lasts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so a little scary for sure.
100%. If people want to learn more about you and your consulting and your organization, how can they find you? How can they reach out?
Yeah, my website is purryco.com. So Purry like my last name, Purry, C as in cat, O as in Oscar.com. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. And you can find Purry Consultants on LinkedIn, or you can find myself, Emily Purry, on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere.
I want to just thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciated you sharing your story and just learning a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.